From The Australian, here's what's on the front. I'm Claire Harvey. It's Tuesday, November 4, 2025. 64% of Australians say they want fewer immigrants to come to this country, and the sentiment is spread across all age groups. As support bleeds from the coalition to Pauline Hanson's One Nation and our big cities see anti-immigration rallies, a new news poll shows widespread anxiety about the volume of Labor's intake. That exclusive is live now at theaustralian.com.au. Senior heads will roll at Optus over September's fatal O outage. Just not yet. That's the takeout from a Senate inquiry into the 3 deaths, including a baby, that resulted when emergency calls failed after the telco botched a routine network upgrade. Documents provided by Optus to the inquiry revealed it not only failed to properly inform the government or the telecommunications regulator what was happening, but failed to properly keep its own CEO in the loop. That's today's story.
As the CEO, I'm accountable for Optus's failings, and I'm deeply sorry.
This is the boss of Optus, Stephen Roux, and he's talking to a Senate inquiry into how on earth Optus has failed in its obligation to connect people who call 000 to emergency services, particularly on September 18, when 3 people died.
We are all deeply sorry. The tragic deaths of people during this outage will stay with us as individuals and as a company as we investigate the incident and build on our response while progressing a sweeping transformation of Optus. I joined this company a year ago because I know it is important for Australia that Optus succeeds. When I arrived, Optus was implementing learnings from the 2022 cyber attack and the 2023 national outage.
OK, so he's been busy. But Optus has been here before, and now Roux says the company's identified 10 failings that led to this disaster.
The outage on September 18 was not a complex system failure, but it was a unique circumstance where 000 was down while other calls continued normally. The initial mistake, a human error, occurred when the wrong process plan was selected for a routine firewall upgrade. The selected plan did not divert traffic before locking equipment inside the exchange that routes 000 calls. This is an explanation, not an excuse.
Well, he's said it all before.
Jared Lynch is the Australian's technology editor.
He said it not that long ago when the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission sued Optus for $100 million in one of Australia's biggest unconscionable conduct cases. This is when they knowingly sold plans to people they knew could not afford them. They sold a plan to a deaf man. They sold a phone plan to a homeless person. They sold a phone plan to a man with dementia. They've been here before, and Stephen Roux's response, and rightly so, is to acknowledge, apologise, and then say he's working to rebuild public trust. But then this outage happened, and he said the same thing. What we need to see now is tangible action. How much money are they investing in capital expenditure to ensure that there isn't another 000 outage? How much money are they spending in their network to build resilience to ensure that people do not die again because they could not get help when they needed it most?
The last time an Optus CEO fronted parliamentarians in a crisis, she was out the door very shortly afterwards. Stephen Roux's predecessor quit in 2023 after a grilling at a very similar inquiry when Optus's systems failed to prevent a giant hack of customers' details and a national outage.
I think calls that Stephen Roux should be sacked. You need to ask, what will the end result be? What will it achieve? Will it instigate the change that is required to ensure that people can rely on Optus when they need it most? Probably not. And the reason why is because there are clear systemic failures within Optus. We saw it in 2022 with that big cyber attack, which resulted in more than 9 million Australians having their personal and sensitive information plundered by hackers. We saw it 12 months later when there was that nationwide outage and more than 2,000 people could not contact 000. We saw it with the unconscionable conduct case. And only in September, we saw it again. The only difference was 3 people tragically lost their lives. The question is Singtel, Optus's Singaporean owner, a fit and proper owner of Australian critical infrastructure? That is what the issue is, because that will go a long way to ensuring the systemic failures within Optus are addressed, because the buck has to stop with the owner.
Roo says Optus has now taken serious steps to make sure this can never happen again.
Every network change now requires explicit confirmation that emergency call routing is functioning both before and after the work is completed. We've implemented 24/7 state-by-state monitoring of 000 call failures, volumes and failure rates to enable faster detection of anomalies. Our contact centre procedures have been overhauled, including a mandatory escalation process for any customer reports of 000 issues, ensuring they are immediately referred to our networks team for investigation. We've introduced daily manual 000 test calls in every state and territory.
I think what we're seeing is what happens when offshoring, the loss of Australian sovereignty, what happens when that goes horribly wrong. It wasn't that long ago that there used to be boots on the ground in like every phone exchange in every town. Well, now there aren't those boots on the ground in not only the same town, but the same state and same country. I mean, this was the result of engineers in Chennai, India, who, in Stephen Roo's words, failed to follow the proper processes. And just to give you an idea, those processes aren't exactly rocket science. I was speaking to telcos soon after Optus's outage, and one of those processes is for an engineer with boots on the ground to actually pick up the phone when they're doing a software upgrade and call 000 to see if it's still working. This isn't high-tech stuff. It's about having the capability within country to ensure that when you do these sorts of software upgrades, and there are thousands that happen each week across Australian telcos, that when you do these upgrades, things don't go wrong and people don't lose their lives as a result.
These inquiries are a search for truth, but they're also an opportunity for senators to get their high dudgeon on. Senator Sarah Hanson-Young, a member of the Greens, turned the grilling to Optus Chair John Arthur after it emerged Roo wasn't informed by his own employees of the magnitude of the problem.
Mr. Arthur, Mr. Arthur, you've heard all of this, and this says to me your management team is not up to the job. There was members of the team who knew that it was a whole lot worse, that they'd given misleading information, wrong information to the government. They knew that completing the welfare checks that 2 people had died, and their CEO was totally out of the loop. Like, how can you sit here as the chairperson of Optus and say that this executive team are doing their job?
Senator, as the Chief Executive pointed out, there were, I think, 10 failures here. 10 failures. And if you're asking me whether I am alarmed at that, I can assure you I am. However, this man was brought into this company to make sure we became a company that didn't have 10 failures like that. That's his job. Now, he's partway through this job, and I'm expecting him to finish it, because I never in my life want to be in the position I'm in today where I have to answer these sorts of questions about a company I'm associated with.
Well, is there anyone else on the executive team who's going to get the sack? Because from what I can see, there's been failure from the corporate communications element right through to the CEO.
Senator, if you're asking me whether or not there will be accountabilities here, and accountabilities not just for junior people, then I can assure you that there will be.
Coming up, why the watchdog says it's not to blame. A couple of times during his evidence, Stephen Roo said the success of the system was on everyone.
Telcos must make sure their own networks are reliable. That's on each of us. But we must also ensure that backup systems like CampOn, which is a critical mobile network function that allows a mobile phone to connect to the 000 emergency call service using another carrier's network when the user's own network is unavailable, also works for Australians. That's on all of us as an industry, including telcos, the device manufacturers, the industry, the regulator, and government.
But the regulator's not copping the blame. Narita O'Loughlin, chair and agency head of the Australian Communications and Media Authority, was grilled by Sarah Hanson-Young.
Optus clearly don't think they have to inform you of serious outages or the numbers the numbers don't matter, and they obviously didn't think that they have an illegal obligation to inform you of whether there's a deadly result. And doesn't that say something about how they view you as a regulator? And they clearly don't take you seriously.
Senator, that's a question you have to put up to Optus, not to me.
They're arguing that regulatory requirements they had fulfilled. But because you didn't pick up the phone and you didn't chase them up, they've been let off the hook.
Senator, they won't be let off the hook.
They're the police, they're the regulator. They should have been watching them very, very closely to ensure that the changes that they said that they were adopting across their network to ensure such an outage did not happen again, those changes were actually happening. It's not like it was unprecedented. It wasn't that long ago that we had an outage of similar proportions. The regulator, the police should have been doing their job, monitoring Optus closely. For them to say, well, it's not our fault, Optus failed, not us, that just doesn't wash.
Jared Lynch is the Australian's technology editor. You can check out all our reporting and analysis from Jared, reporter Jack Quayle in Canberra, and the team right now at theaustralian.com.au.